We are going to talk about what we mean by reductio ad absurdum. Is a technique or argument or type of arguments. It's a logical techniques and type of argument which is used for different things. So let's see what it means first. Okay, literally, if you pay some attention to it, it would be obvious to you if it is not already obvious. So it's a Latin word or phrase. So reductio means just reduction or reducing, reduction. Ad means to. Absurdum or absurdity or just absurd. So reducing something to absurdity to show that it's not worth holding, basically. So that's the literal meaning. Now, in philosophy and logic, what does it mean? Well, just English dictionary tells me that reductio ad absurdum. So it doesn't give any other definition. It does give definition as it is used in philosophy. So I'll just read it and we'll just go through it. Okay, so a method of proving a method. So it's supposed to be a method. It's a method, and it can also be used as a technique. It doesn't have to have a method. Method has a connotation of bit more consistency. So of proving the falsity of a premise. A premise just means your claim. Premise just means your claim about anything. So the method of proving the falsity of your claim by showing that its logical consequences. What do we mean by logical? Logical consequence can mean that what follows from your claim, either on its own or combined with other claims which are not disputed by either parties. And then using the rules of inferences, that is moving from one claim to another, that's what logical consequences are here, is absurd or contradictory. So absurd or contradictory. So if your claim leads to absurd results or contradictory results, then it means that it's not a claim you should be holding, because one of assumptions of rationality is that claims are consistent with each other, that they don't contradict each other, and that they don't true claims cannot lead to conclusions which are untrue or false or absurd. So that's just the meaning of reductio ad absurdum. Now, reductio ad absurdum, it was even in this, was obvious in this definition, are of two types, at least of two types. One, let's say, weak reductio, and the other is strong reductio. Strong reductio is more like logically makes your claim logically untenable. It's more like 1 + 1 3 or something like that. On the other hand, weak reductio don't go to that extent. They can't prove that your claim leads to something logically untenable, as contradiction, for example, but your claim leads with claims combined with other claims which you won't dispute, lead to claims which are absurd. So absurd is not always logically untenable, but you don't want to hold absurd claims or ridiculous claim. So even though logically speaking weak reductio doesn't refute your claim, it still shows that your claim leads to results which even you think that are absurd or something like that. And this first type of argument, Socrates, for example, uses it a lot. For example, in Theaetetus, he asked his interlocutor, Theaetetus, what is knowledge? Define knowledge. And I think he says it is perception. Knowledge is perception. And then through dialogue with him, he reduces this claim that knowledge is perception to something absurd, which even the person who had made the claim would think that is absurd. So that means that if a claim leads to absurd conclusion, then we shouldn't probably hold that claim. Important thing is, from here to there, the argument has to proceed with the help of, like, your interlocutor has to accept that there are no flaws in argument. But generally, Socrates' arguments are not that good, I think. They have a lot of gaps. Anyway, people have different opinions about it. I think there's sleight of hands. But, this is a technique. If you want to, it's not specific to Socrates is known for it, but it's not specific to it. A lot of people use it. That if somebody makes a claim, if you can reduce their claim to, or you can draw with their agreement through logical steps combined with other claims or the claims which are employed by your claim or some other known facts, combined with that, if you can reduce a claim to absurdity, then a person, if they agree with the intermediate steps, then they are probably going to have to abandon their claim. or at least they would have to reformulate them. And that's a common method in debates of all sorts. And Socrates uses it in Islamic disciplines. It is widely used. For example, there are two disciplines which widely use them. One is called Ilmul Jadal. Jadal just means debate. Ilmul Jadal al-Fiqhi. About fiqh, a debate among different fiqhi schools. So there's a whole discipline called Ilm al-Jadal al-Fiqhi. What people do is to take the claims of different schools and then try to reduce them to absurd conclusions. And similarly, Ilm al-Jadal al-Aqdi, like the debate about Aqidah. Different schools also use the same techniques. So this is the weaker form of argument, where you try to reduce the claim of your opponent to absurd conclusions or ridiculous conclusion, which results in, not strictly speaking, logical contradiction, but something which, to a claim which you don't want to accept because it's ridiculous or absurd as it is taken. Now, a stronger form of the same argument is that if somebody, not form of this argument, is if somebody makes a claim and then you reduce it to exact opposite or contradiction of that claim, then obviously you can't hold both claims. You would have to drop one claim, either the initial claim or the conclusion, because you can't claim P and at the same time the negation of P. Because strict contradiction mean that one claim leads to the falsity, the truth of one claim lead to the falsity of the other. So you can't hold both of them together. Either you can't combine them together, you can't reject them together. You have to actually accept one of them. That is a stronger form. That's why a stronger form is used actually as indirect proof, form of indirect proof in logic. Because if you want to prove P, then what you do is you take the negation of P. You want to prove P, you take the negation of P and combine with other premises which are already proven, you show that it leads to a contradiction. That means that if the negation of this leads to a contradiction, then this must be true. That's one form. And there are another way of indirect proofs as well. You don't need to go into that. But this is reductio ad absurdum.